there. So for absolute clarity, I'm happy to adjust the first sentence in Appendix 1 to read, the table below compares monitoring data for PM10 and calculated synthetic data for PMT 2.5, if you wish to make it absolutely clear.
I don't think the word calculated is the right word. Calculated suggests that there has been a study. It is estimated.
Yes. So there has been a study, a New Zealand-wide study, and that's how the ratios were calculated.
No, it hasn't been calculated. You've got to use the right English word. Calculated means that you have done the study and there are your calculations. This is extrapolated data, so it's an estimation. The 2.5 hasn't been monitored. You used the word calculated from the PM10 readings, hasn't it?
No, it's been calculated from a New Zealand-wide study.
Exactly. But the point that I'm trying to...
Was it monitored in Cromwell?
Yeah. No, exactly. And the answer is no. I know, but PM 2.5 wasn't. No. PM 2.5 wasn't.
Okay.
What word would you propose, Michael?
No, PM 2.5 wasn't monitored.
Hey, look, hang on. Look, let's not.
Cheers.
Hang on. Got it. Number one, please.
Point of order.
Don't I have to use this thing?
Point of order.
I just called you a lying bastard.
There you go.
Earlier on the meeting, I'm going to have to be consistent, and I'm going to ask you to withdraw that comment because it's inappropriate.
May I make an explanation as I withdraw it?
You withdraw it first, please.
I'll withdraw it. Can I make the explanation?
Thank you. As long as it's not derogatory or anything.
It's not derogatory, but that member over there keeps on saying, has written in this article, there is no local evidence. The person behind us has just said that there was locally monitored, this is what you wrote, locally monitored PM10, not locally monitored synthetic 2.5. And that's why I got angry, because he's accusing the staff of not being factual.
Okay, no, Michael, please. Okay, let's just leave it as that, because I don't think we want to dig a deeper hole for anyone around the table. Okay. Thank you for the feedback, Gwyneth. Right, we are now back on track. We're now dealing with item 10.4. Oh, sorry, Kevin.
So could I just ask what the wording will be?
Yes, exactly.
Are we saying it's estimated or calculated? I suppose that's.
Well, I propose calculated. We could say modelled for the 2.5 if you would. Is that a better term?
Model is modelled more accurate.
Well,
it's estimated. That's the right word.
Maybe, I don't know.
Look,
correlated, yeah.
Look, can we just use the appropriate word that reflects the actual? If it was recorded locally, use the appropriate word that reflects that. If it was a generic calculation that was done on modelling or whatever, use the appropriate language to describe it. That
wasn't calculated.
So where did it come from? Where did it come from?
So it says here it came from a New Zealand study, right?
Yeah.
So the information came from a New Zealand-wide study where that
wasn't locally collected information. Is that what we're hearing?
That's what I just said. For the synthetic 2.5, it's been calculated. The ratios have been calculated based on the New Zealand-wide study.
Right.
It's still invented.
Yeah.
It didn't happen.
Gretchen,
maybe accept the views of the scientific expert and we'll just leave it at that. Yeah.
No, I'm really unhappy with that.
No.
I want to... The word... Listen, words matter. Calculated suggests that there was a study that led to, and that in Cromwell, and all those other little airshed areas, the 2.5 was measured. It was not. It has been extrapolated from the 10 data, the PM10 data.
Yeah, it is.
That's quite critical.
Yes, that's correct.
Because if
Was it calculated using PM10 and extrapolated using PM25?
They're both right.
Could we have those two separated?
Yes.
That's what I said. Yeah. So calculated for one,
And extrapolated for the other.
No. Monitored for the PM10. Yeah, monitored for the PM10. And we're saying extrapolated for the... Okay, the word is extrapolated.
So we're on the same page?
Yep, we are now.
Excellent, thank you very much. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Gretchen. Okay, Kurowao lease, staffer, I think was Peter Gallagher. He may have moved on, or Nick. Okay, this is 10.4. Sorry, Peter, I couldn't see you behind the pole. Just remind me of the page. Oh, sorry, it's 48. Yeah, sorry.
I'm happy to move. Yeah, I'll second.
Okay, just before I just go to Peter, is there anything you want to inform the council on with regards to this paper?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There were three things I was going to raise, just to, I guess, set the frame for any debate. A contract to sell the land is formed when the lessee gives notice of the intention to purchase. So the fact we've received the intention to purchase, we have a contract. We can't refuse to sell the lessee the freehold interest in the land. And the final point I was going to make is there's no obligation on the lessee to accept any terms and conditions that are requested by the council. So where we've got to with the negotiation of those terms and conditions has been with the generosity of the lessees.
So they offered the covenant for the various bits of land that were identified by the consultants that looked for any ecological value, so to speak. So, and they offered a covenant over those pieces of land, correct?
It would have been a negotiation process. It predates my involvement in the particular issue, but through a negotiation process, and also the contribution of the fencing would have been part of that as well.
Okay. So moved by Kate, seconded by Hilary. Any further discussion? Then that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 5 recommendations on page 48.
Yep.
No discussion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you very much, Peter. Sorry about the delay. Moving on to 10.5, Local Government New Zealand Annual General Meeting.
Oh, yeah. The remits.
Three delegates. Kate has indicated she's interested. I'll certainly attend, yes. Is there someone else that would like to come? I think 2 went last year.
Armin went last year.
Yes. Yeah. Go.
Normally
Even
there's a
Monster,
staff
do you?
member that goes, either me or a member of the exec.
Okay, so
But
this...
it doesn't have to be,
Right.
and I'm absolutely not wedded to that.
Means me, it wouldn't be a rush for the door, would it? No.
So, welcome, Amanda.
Amanda could go.
Anything you want to inform the council with regard to this paper? Okay, so are you comfortable that...
Can I move a motion?
Yes, please.
Great. That we leave it to the delegates, the elected or the selected delegates today, to determine the ORC's policy position on the remits that will be before the floor.
Yeah, I just haven't got those recommendations in front of me, but that was one of the recommendations in the paper, because there was a choice between...
So either directs the ORC or gives the ORC delegates discretion. Gives them either or.
Can I sort of amend that slightly with the permission of the mover? Which is for the one that says, can it go from 3 to 4 years?
And also we're on the first page of the Local Government New Zealand AGM, and there's 5 recommendations.
Yep.
Okay, and there's the either or 4 and 5?
Yes, 4 and 5, yeah.
So Michael, are you moving 1, 2, 3, and which one out of 4 and 5?
So I would 5.
Okay. So your question, Hilary?
I'm asking that they don't support Remit 6 on our behalf. We've got no mandate for that
That's
sort
not
of...
what we're talking about. We're talking about the recommendations, and it's this one here.
Page 192.
Yes, and I'm saying I don't mind them having delegate discretion to vote on any of those remits except the remit
Okay.
that says let's move it from 3 to 4 years, because I don't think we've got any mandate for that. Remit 6. So otherwise, they're free to do what they want.
And just remind me, the 3 to 4 year remit you're referring to?
6.
Number 6, that the local government cycle be extended from 3 to 4 years.
Sorry.
Okay.
And so, in other words, you're saying for recommendation 5 that the discretion for all the remits except that one applies.
Yeah.
Do you want to move an amendment to? Okay,
It'd be an additional one, wouldn't it?
Beg your pardon?
Oh, yes, it would be an amendment, yeah.
Yeah. So Michael's moved 1, 2, 3, and 5. Seconded. I'll second that. Now, Hilary, you were making an amendment to number 5, correct? That remit number 6 isn't.
Do you want to go?
It's not supported. that our delegate is not
entitled to vote for it.
Entitled to support that.
Okay. Liz, if you.
That we say directs the delegates to vote against remit number 6. Is that what it is?
Against or just not support?
Or not to vote, support it.
Not support it? Okay.
I'm a bit worried it allows personal. Oh, sorry.
No, that's right. No, that's. I was just going to get a seconder for the amendment first. We've got a seconder for the amendment.
Yeah, I'll second it.
Thank you, Michael. Alexa, speaking to the amendment. Speaking to the amendment.
No, I'm happy with the amendment. Sorry.
Oh, okay. So can we just deal with the amendment then? Any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Substantive motions 1, 2, 3, and 5.
That's what I'm a bit worried about. Hang on. What am I worried about now? I've lost my point. I'm worried that are we planning to
problematic. Natural hazard.
Are we planning them to ask on their own opinion to vote on their own opinion on those remits? I'm a bit worried about that. I would want to see us having a position on at least some of them that our delegate takes to that AGM.
Yeah.
I don't want to leave that to people's own opinion on public transport and housing affordability.
My advice would
Natural
be
hazards.
that you should take a position on each remit.
That's what I'd like to do.
Governance team.
Okay.
We did it last year.
Right. If you're saying that.
No, we didn't.
No, we agreed them all.
Okay.
No.
So we'll just go back to Alexa. We're just going to run through the remits.
We said, yeah.
Well, I wouldn't have.
Leave it to the discretion.
We can go through quite quickly, I think. Yeah, we just if we don't have debate, we just actually
No,
put them.
just we'll run through each one.
Yeah. Well, then,
Start with
if
the
that's
first
the case, then item 5 needs to drop off.
You need
The motion.
Well, I think what I'm
You
looking.
need to put the vote and then fails.
Yeah, to put the motion in, that's right.
If it fails, then it's 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
As your
Okay.
president.
Okay.
So
Vote for four of them and then.
Okay.
If
I'll
you
do
voted
the
for either directs the IRC or, and
I see.
if we give
Yes.
them ORC delegates discretion and we vote against that.
Or 3.
Or withdraw 5.
We have to.
Okay. So by the sound of it, let's put it to the vote, and then whether there's any consequences
And
if
if the
5
vote's
isn't
lost, then
passed,
you've got to
we
go.
then we
Yeah.
go to each remit and work our way
Are we
through.
voting on 1, 2, 3 and 5?
Yep. I'll put them all separately.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll put recommendation 1 that we received the report. All
Aye.
those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Number 2, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Number 3, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against,
Can I
carried.
understand what the decision was for 2? We decided, I didn't hear, I wasn't sure.
So,
say you
there was
were
2 councillors, myself
we will
and
decide.
you, and you.
Yeah. Okay, no,
Put their hands up.
okay.
Yep.
Oh, so did
So
Kevin
we're
Malcolm.
deciding it's,
Oh, sorry. I didn't pick that up.
Yeah,
Sorry,
we
mate.
decided that you two are heading off too.
Sorry, Kevin.
helpful to have the names in there.
Yes.
Okay, let's just go back one step. In fact, 2 steps. Let's go back to the first recommendation. The first recommendation is that we receive the report. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. That
official
that Kevin,
ORC.
Kate, and myself represent the ORC as official ORC delegates to the AGM.
Yes.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
I'll
Against.
move that if somebody needed to move it.
No,
That's all right, it's just been moved. Yeah.
Against, carried. Number 3, notes the attached remits will be discussed at the LGNZ AGM. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
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 Against, carried. Number 5, gives the ORC delegates discretion to vote on remits supported by the ORC for voting purposes at the AGM with the exclusion of not supporting remit 6. I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against,
No.
against. Show of hands. All those in favour, please say
What are you
aye.
asking us against?
As to whether
please?
whether we want those remits to be their own choice.
I don't want to. So I am voting no on that.
Yeah, okay. So all those in favour of recommendation 5, please raise their hand. 1, 2, 3, sorry. Against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that motion lost. So now we'll go back to the individual remits and just work our way through. Okay. Remit number 1, public transport support.
Kevin, question.
Yes.
Should this decision be made now, or should this be made at the 12th of August meeting?
Really good question.
I'm just thinking in timeliness and...
So, okay.
If we're ready to make the decision now, I'm happy to make the decision now, but if councillors feel they're happy to make the decision now, I'm happy to run with that, but I'm just...
We've got really full.
Yep. Ox on now?
Yeah.
Yep, happy. That's right, we'll just ask the question.
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, we're not going to do justice to these remits if we're just going to do this now. Many of them stand some good debate. In addition to which, can I just make this general view? I'm struggling ever to think of a remit that's gone to local government New Zealand that's ever had any influence at all with anybody. It's just the process. It's some of the most useless, time-wasting, appalling pack ever. And now we're going to actually give it some credence.
Well, let's just go quickly through and decide what we think. Don't give it another time. Quickly.
In theory, we should have cast our eye through these remits, so we must have a bit of a feel.
Ones that Alexa...
Yes, there is.
So
that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, so how many of them are there?
I think public transport we should support, housing affordability we should support, natural hazards and climate change adaptation we should support. I don't give a toss about the annual regional balance of transfers, and I think it would probably work badly for Otago, so I don't think we should support that. I don't think we should support the local government electric cycle, which you've already said that. Yep. And we've already passed something around water bottling, so we should support that.
So that's only
I'm going to go over the page, Zoe.
Oh,
There's four more over
that's
the
fine.
page.
Quorum attorney, I think that's a good one. We do want that.
We've done that. It was done on the statutes revision bill.
Macrons, I don't really mind, but have been involved in Macron bombing, going around with tape, but anyway, whatever. Rebates for low property income owners, it's probably a good idea.
Yeah, that's looking at
and local government CO2 emissions, definitely yes.
So can I move all of them except the one Alexa doesn't want?
Okay.
Which is all except
there was
annual regional balance of...
Yeah, didn't want that.
Didn't want government...
Oh, yeah, then we've already done that one. Oh, returning GST on rates.
I don't want that.
I don't want that either.
Okay,
that's just...
let's leave out those two and I'll move the rest.
And maybe more clear so I can get...
The delegates are to support.
Delegates are to support 1 through 20 minus 6 and 12 and 14.
And 3. We're not supporting 3 either.
And 3.
Actually, I don't know where you've got
sorry.
those.
We didn't have the 6 numbers.
Sorry, 6 and 5 and 3. 3, 5 and 6.
Can we just go through them one by one? Public transport. Not supporting.
3 and 5, apart from what we've already not
The trouble is the numbers we're using.
5, but 6 and 14.
No, that was just a paragraph. Don't listen to me.
All but
3 and 5 because we've already ruled out 6.
Yes, I do. On item number 3. See, you invite this now, don't you? I told you. On item 3, which is returning GST on rates.
I'm hoping someone's going to move that the motion be put, but anyway, okay.
No, you see, you can't do that because there haven't been speakers to it.
Number 6, I'm sorry, number 6.
Oh, it did too.
So if you want to include number 6, you need to add it in here.
No, we've already passed.
We've already
passed something about 6.
That motion failed.
You don't have GST on your PAYE or your withholding tax.
No, the amendment didn't fail.
That's right, but the motion itself.
The motion did.
Well, we could just say.
Yeah, okay.
And 6 in here would be a better way of doing it.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
3, 5 and 6 aren't included. Michael, you're going to have to make this brief.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say.
We're going to vote on the rest first. Keep them out of the way.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I just thought you were going to. Okay.
Yeah. Probably a speech.
You want to vote on the 3, 5 and 6?
No,
the others.
out.
All but 3, 5 and 6. And we can pass them.
But Michael's going to speak. So you want to deal with the voting now before he speaks? Sorry, have I lost it?
Yeah, I don't know.
you haven't lost
it.
So the question is, aren't we in debate about supporting all the remits except 3, 5 and 6?
You are correct.
Okay, so
why?
He's talking about 3.
I just want to
So
see
you want to talk
when
to
it comes up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Haven't we
It's
already
now or
said
never.
It's not.
Yeah.
Haven't you already said you don't want it?
No. The reason I do support this remit is because
Can I give it a
at the moment we don't pay GST on any form of taxation in this
That's right.
country, on PAYE, on withholding tax, on company tax. And the principles that are here, it's interesting the number of councils that have said it, is correct. So we pay our rates, which is a local form of taxation, and then you pay GST on top of that, and then you send that 15% to Wellington. Now, all that's simply being asked here in an extraordinary situation, which is COVID, when there is a lack of money for infrastructure, and many councils have it, is can we have that GST back? I think that's an entirely reasonable request.
When they've given us so much money for infrastructure.
No, they haven't given us any money for infrastructure. They've given us money for, no, none at all so far.
I move the motion be put.
Thank you. So I'm going to have to put the.
I'm happy for 3 to come. Oh no, she's not.
No. I'm going to have to put the 3 together. That's the way they've been moved.
Yeah.
Okay, but
I just go no.
You have to. Okay. So everyone know what we're voting on? That we don't include 3, 5 and 6? Okay. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against?
No.
Carried. Thank you.
Who was that? So that was Councillor Calvert moved that, and who seconded that motion?
It's a very good question. I think it was Alexa.
Might have been Alexa. Might have been Michael.
Thank you.
It can be me.
Moving on to item 11. Okay, this is the consultant and legal spend. Welcome, Nick.
So all of the general managers are available.
Yep. No, thank you for that, Sarah.
Almost broken tax.
Oh, it is, but it's not twice tax.
But that doesn't make it.
I know what you're going to say.
Welcome, Nick. And my understanding is that the GMs that are with us today will make comment where appropriate on their particular area of spend where it relates to consultants. Nick, any comment in general that you wanted to make?
No, I'll just comment. Sarah Munro, who wrote the paper, pulled the numbers together. She was here this morning, but she's had to leave. Yeah, unfortunately, that means it's just me here. But this is just giving a summary. Follows from the question. This was requested when we did the quarterly financial report. So that was up until March. But the numbers that are here have been updated to be up until the end of May. So you've got the 11-month year-to-date numbers, and it just outlines more detail around the consultant and legal spend. And if you look, some of it, there's some highlighting to show which ones of those companies that we're using in those areas are Otago-based or have an office here. So could be viewed as, as local consultants or lawyers.
And there's nothing to compare with previous year or anything at this stage. Might be something we look to in the future.
Well, no, we
weren't asked for that.
No.
The question was if we could have more detail around what those numbers were that we did at March. So we updated them and just provided the detail numbers.
I understand that. I just wondered historically whether we had a figure. Not that we've asked for it before. Question. Thank you. Michael, then Hilary.
2 issues. The first issue is related to consultancy fees, which are significant and sort of take your breath away when you first look at them. You ask for these questions in governance because you want to then ask the Chief Executive, which I'm about to ask you, Sarah, the obvious question. And that is the money that we're spending on consultants. would it be better off to have a staff member playing in that role? And that's the reason you asked the question. So that's the first question I'm going to ask Sarah. And then the correlation of that is, this is historic. Going forward into the next 12 months, can we extrapolate some of that thinking as well, looking at these consultancy fees? Are they likely to be the same in the next 12 months? Or will we looking at them as a staffing item? So that's the first issue.
Okay.
Thanks, Sarah.
All right. Sorry. I'm busy listening to you. I've forgotten the first question. Just tell me very briefly.
The first question was, it's a lot of money.
Yes.
Would we be better off having staff?
Right. Okay.
To these roles?
Yep. Right. Okay. Well, I think first of all, and these are my maths, so Nick might correct me, but I think it's actually only 8% of total budget. So it looks like a lot, but it's not a huge percentage of total budget. The other thing I would say is that, as you know, we have been on a bit of a journey. So our consents review and the Skelton report both said we were under-resourced, and as you know, we ended up having to do a whole lot of work quickly with time constraints. And I guess if you look at the time cost quality diagram, in order to deliver on time and a quality job, we have had to have some extra assistance. We also have had circumstances where we have gone out to market to perhaps get a full-time staff member and haven't been able to. And a good example of that is the policy manager's role that Anita's now in. We went to market 3 times for that, and we were not able to get a suitably qualified policy manager. We are very pleased to have Anita on board now. We have had to go out for team leaders of consenting, for example, a number of times as well. So there are some roles that it's very difficult to recruit for. There are some things that do not warrant having a full-time staff member on board for, because they are very technical but very specific and sometimes short-term pieces of work that you are better off to get a consultant for. And there are some skills that in time, absolutely, we, sort of moving to your next question, in time we have a number of mitigation strategies in place. One of those is the number of positions that have just gone through in the annual plan, some of which of course we started recruiting for early so that we were up to speed as much as possible in terms of resourcing as we met this. Now, in saying that, we also have a bunch of circumstances that are new that have happened to us in the time that the annual plan came about. So all of this demand for resource around Jobs for Nature, whatever's coming at us via Three Waters, a whole bunch of other things. And again, it is likely that in some cases we will find ourselves without the resources in-house, and the only way that you can deliver quickly and do a quality job is to buy resources in. There will always be a need to use consultants. I don't believe you would ever get to the point where you didn't need to use consultants. My hope would be that as we consolidate the skills and experience of the staff that we have, we will rely on some of that capacity less. But I do think that there will always be consultants involved for different reasons, some of which I've outlined now.
Thank you.
Going forward?
Yeah, well, that's what I mean, going forward. So, yes, you know, we've got some mitigation strategies. We are all aware of the optics of the consultant spend, but at the same time, we all have, you know, increasing demands upon us. We have time, cost and quality concerns, and we have to manage within those because, you know, we have to deliver and we have had to buy in expertise. Moving forward, I would hope that will reduce as our staff and the new people that we've got on board take more of that role.
Thank you, Sarah. Hilary.
Yeah, and I don't know whether they would turn up here or not. If we get a consultant to do something for a resource consent and then we reduce the cost of the consent to the applicant, would they come in as, are they in here as consultants somewhere?
Yes, so you'll see we've got, so if you look at, just take the example of Tonkin and Taylor, for example, we've got 40% consents. So you will have, as part of that, those consultants will have worked on a consent, usually on a technical basis, because we haven't had enough scientists to be able to support the technical consenting work and the policy work. So we have been using consultants to help us with that. If there was an objection to cost, hypothetically, if it was determined that the cost was not actual and reasonable and a discount was given, then that burden falls on the ratepayer.
So that could be in Whawhamuskil, and it could be in Mitchell Dash, and it could be in Tonkin and Taylor.
It could be, but we're not in the business of giving.
It could be E3 Scientific Limited.
I might just go to Richard.
The costs for consultants spent within the resource consent process. You can see on page 199, top 5 council departments from the table above. The consents features very highly because of the number that have been engaged, both in planning, in the consent and processing, and also in the technical review. So this doesn't account for any reductions given post that service. This is purely just the expenditure on consultants.
Yes.
Yeah. So it would be interesting to me, just taking this down for later, not for today, just it would be useful for me if we're looking generally at these things and thinking, can we reduce our costs of consultants? And sometimes it's because we've now got an in-house person and that's good, and sometimes we absolutely can't because there's only 2 hydrologists in the country and we have to consult them, and that's just how the world is. But another category is a category of people who we've reduced, these are the total consultancy costs, but they might have been paid half for by the applicant or mostly by the applicant or something.
That's a different. Yeah. That would be a different question. You would be asking us to run a completely different set of numbers around what was our total spend on consultants versus what did we recoup through fees and charges.
I think just for another day it would be useful to know whether we're looking at that and seeing if we can do anything about whatever proportion of this.
Well, we're certainly trying to do something about our cost recovery overall, because compared to our peers and other councils, it's reasonably low. So we're working with the consents team on that.
So that's probably the thing that Richard's got as a body of work already somewhere in the middle of. Yeah.
Michael.
Yeah, just a question of Sarah. You mentioned generally about 8%. 8% of what? Salary
total
costs
budget.
or operational costs?
No, total budget.
Total budget.
Not so.
Have you any idea how that compares with other regional councils?
I wouldn't think it would be out of whack with other regional councils. I really don't think so.
So what's your spend? 60-something mil, wasn't it?
Well, that's based on the budgeted amount for this year, which was just under 68 million. But some of those numbers, we use consultants as a matter of course for different things. In my area, for example, every year we have to get valuations done of our investment properties. That's consultant cost, and we don't have. You need to go external to get that expertise. So there's things like that all across the business. We've just got factored into the budget.
Price Waterhouse or whatever.
Yeah, Price Waterhouse for the port review was another classic example.
And 7 on page 199 covers where consultants are used to either process or provide technical expert input to a consent that are recovered in accordance to fees and charges. Yes. So
that's what.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Okay, no further questions?
No, that's fine.
Not on that. No.
On the paper?
Right.
Oh, on legal expenditure, yes.
Yep.
Oh, okay, so, Michael.
Go for it.
Page 246, paragraph 14, the top 5 legal companies were.
Yep.
Chen Palmer.
Yep.
That's a huge amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
for the work that I anticipate was done, was it the start of this year? Was it the end of last year? Start of this year?
January
January 22nd.
Yeah, Job. Thank you.
Okay, January 22nd. And the problem I'm having with this is, can I ask Sarah, this is within your delegation.
Yes, it is.
Was that your choice to make to employ Chen Palmer?
That was, I had a request from the chair, and Chen Palmer was one of the firms that was discussed, and May was available.
So for the amount of work that was done at that time, to looking at a bill that we're looking at there, what was their hourly rate that they charged?
I don't have it off the top of my head. I'd have to get it for you. I can tell you that they have recently put us onto their 20% reduced government rate.
Okay. I'd like to know what their hourly rate is. And the next, because I don't understand why we didn't employ, as we did with Ross Dowling, a Dunedin law firm.
Well, I think there might have been a conversation that happened between yourself and the chair.
I didn't have the conversation.
I believe you might have.
Marion?
Yeah, I'd like to, say something. It was a conversation that did occur in here, in this room, and the councillor had been disagreeing with I think, Mr. Kelleher, and saying, I don't agree, no, you're wrong, those sorts of things. And I said, is there anybody you would agree with? Would you agree with May Chen? And you said, yes. And I went back up to you and said, okay, if we need to get somebody, let's try and get May Chen.
But that was
before. Look, I don't want to relitigate the reasons why.
No, I'm going forward now.
What I'm looking for, fair questions around the overall costs associated with consultants. Yeah. I don't want to get into other matters.
There is one other thing in there that's not about other matters, is that May Chen, you'll notice that there is HR. It wasn't all about the issues that beset the whole council.
So the description of what the costs related to us
it's more than our stuff. More, yeah. They were more than the stuff that everyone knew in here.
It is. That is true. But also, you might recall that some of these costs were as a result of direct contact between councillors and with May. So I did not have control over the spend.
There were a lot of subsequent phone calls from her office.
Yeah, for me personally, I think I had possibly at least three or four conversations.
I couldn't quite work out why, but it was remarkably thoroughly done, I thought at the time. Too much so.
Yep.
Yes.
It was in future, going forward, do we need a motion when we are faced with such extraordinary? Because I imagine that was all unbudgeted expenditure. Is that correct?
Yes, some budgeted expenditure.
Yeah.
Is this more of a, sorry to cut across you, Michael, but is this more to do with a procurement policy which we're going to have a conversation about? Is that where you're heading in terms of who?
Well, it's just that given the extraordinary amount of money that was spent on this issue, and given that it was unbudgeted, and given that there was no council motion on this issue, that's why I'm asking these questions. Yeah. And Sarah has answered those questions.
We did manage that within budget, if you know what I mean. So we didn't have a line item in the annual plan that said we're going to spend this much on legal advice for this reason, and we have managed that inside of the budget envelope.
Essentially, you reprioritised.
Yeah, you reallocate funds.
Yep. Okay. Any further queries on this paper?
Sorry, that just begs the question, what didn't get done that was, or what was dropped down priority then, in order, for that's the only question I have. What didn't we do that was budgeted to be done and no longer could be budgeted to be done?
Well, you always have things that cost less than you think they will and things that cost more than you think they will. And so it's really an odds and evens kind of exercise. I don't think it's as simple as saying we substituted this for that.
Thank you.
Michael?
Chairman, I'd like to move the council receive this report.
I'll second that. Any discussion, Kevin?
Look, just on point 8 on page 199 again, and this is the number of initiatives underway that should lead to a reduction in expenditure. I'm just very happy with what the proposal is and what's happening, and especially I see the endeavour to increase consultation with stakeholders, including TLLAs, prior to changes in their or our RMA plans to minimise cost post notification. So very good on the policy makers for doing that part of it. Thank you.
I think you would be astounded at just how much it costs us to deal with the TA's district plans and that mediation process. It is huge.
Which begs the next question. Do we have a lawyer in-house?
Yes, Peter Callagher was just here.
So if we've got a lawyer in-house, can he do these things in the future?
We don't have an RMA lawyer in-house.
There's far too much work.
Specialist.
There's
for one lawyer.
The work's like this and Peter's like this. Well, just look at the cost. How would Peter possibly be able to do, spend over $1 million on doing this work when there's one of him?
No, I'm just thinking it made sense.
Quite long hours.
I don't know whether...
Well, he already does them.
No one from the media here, but I suggest that Peter's... Oh, sorry, I won't even go. Forgot about YouTube. Right.
It's on record.
It's been moved and seconded by Michael. I second the motion. Any further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you very much for bringing that paper in and responding to the request. Thank you, Sarah, for answering those questions. So moving on to item 11.2. This is the staff submission on DCC bylaws. Got a question. Who wrote this report?
Again, you guys.
Gwyneth.
Last item.
Welcome, Tom. Gwyneth. It's going to do these. And Warren obviously isn't with you. He's busy doing other things. So a brief introduction, Tom. You want to just give us a quick thumbnail sketch?
Yep. Mindful of the time, I'll try to do it in 1 or 2 minutes. Basically, what we presented to you was a paper that gives a summary of draft submission points that we would include in a staff submission. So we actually haven't written the submission yet. The submission period closes on the 17th of August. Basically, what DCC is proposing is 2 bylaws that regulate discharges into the reticulated stormwater and wastewater network. Why do we have an interest? Ultimately, ORC has responsibility for what comes out of those reticulated networks. These bylaws regulate what goes into it. Staff from policy, compliance, consents team have reviewed it, and we're generally supportive of what is being proposed. We would only recommend smaller amendments to provide a little bit more clarity around the wording, and also to incentivize through the bylaws methods to reduce stormwater volume. So on-site stormwater retention, especially where there is a limited capacity available within the network, and also encourage things such as trade waste minimization as well through their consenting process.
Thanks, Tom. So just like treat at source, whether it's trade waste, the emphasis, and sorry, Tom. So the ability, if you take trade waste or stormwater, the ability or the emphasis to treat at source is a key theme.
By the users, rather than by DCC.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry, Hillary.
The ORC will draft a submission which will include the sum of the suggested amendments
Does that mean all of the suggested amendments? Because when it says the sum of, it isn't spelt SUM, it's spelt SOME. So does it mean
SUM?
So
sum of or the sum of?
the paragraph 14 has got 4 bullet points there. I assume that's referring to those 4
No,
bullet points.
paragraph 20.
It's SUM, yeah?
20 is ORC will draft a
sorry.
submission.
Yeah.
So it means
Apologies.
all of them.
That is a typo, yes.
Yeah, so it's the sum of
Yep.
SUM. Okay, cool.
Thank you. Any other queries, questions, Kate?
Just, am I correct in, someone told me this and I haven't read the whole proposal, but that this will be banning people washing their cars on streets. Is that correct? Do we know that? It's just that I want to make sure that we know that when we do a submission agreeing or supporting to that, which we may well be doing, but...
I have to look into that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those fundamental things that people won't make that connection why it's important not to, or understand the products. But okay.
Wash your car on the lawn.
We do have the...
Not everyone has lawn, but
we,
yeah.
We do have the Only Drain Rain campaign, which deals with that issue.
Yeah, well, it's I think it's going to be a big surprise to a lot of people.
Actually, no, it is actually, I'm looking at it now. They're proposing some restrictions as to what you can do. But it's, again, what they're trying to do is reduce the level of contaminants that are being discharged.
I don't have a problem with what they're trying to do, but I just want to make sure that people are aware
So
of
are they
that.
saying you're not allowed to?
No, they're not saying that at all. What they're doing is they give you a few examples of how you can reduce it. And so what they're proposing is, as an example, washing vehicles on grass or on gravel would be encouraged.
Yeah, okay. That's fine.
Because it reduces...
They're not actually legislating that.
Yeah, so it's not a
But it is included in an explanatory note. So,
Okay,
yeah.
that's fine.
Cool. Kevin?
This is a bit of a long question, but I'm saying, where do you think actually stormwater treatment is heading? And do you think it will be compulsory or continue to be allowed to pollute our waterways? And what direction do you believe will come from the MPS?
The question.
It's very big.
I think the only way I can answer that is, I guess, where we've just had a discussion earlier around the reform around the Three Waters program, the third one, which is off of the Port Cousin is stormwater. And so I guess that's the where I'd be looking in terms of, especially over the next sort of 6 to 12 months in terms of the direction of stormwater. So.
Mary.
Just on that, luckily most of our cities are around harbours, and as long as people get educated and they watch a rainstorm, okay, and then you look at what's in the harbour, all the cigarette butts, everything else that's just been washed down stormwater drains and off streets, all the chemicals on streets, the discharges from cars, leaky old bloody cars, all that goes straight into the harbour. And my experience has been that most people on first seeing the harbour and with some really good pertinent on the time education, you begin to get people to understand that what they're doing on the roads actually is affecting the harbour. Look, I used to think I was really good when I put my cigarette down a stormwater drain until I became the bloody minister and they explained to me in words of one syllable that it wasn't helpful.
Do that as a minister?
But then I learnt and then I stopped, as I stopped smoking as well.
Okay.
But you see, there's an ordinary citizen, love, not understanding what stormwater was. And I think that's good. It's huge.
Okay.
I do take Kevin's point, and I do wonder whether we should be pushing rather than being advisory. That there is no point people getting into the habit of doing this if it needs to be. It should be mandatory that you don't do. We're here to protect the environment. We've had campaigns running for years. There's been signs beside a whole lot of drains saying don't put paints, cements, and detergents down these things. And I do think we're at the point, if we want our beaches to be swimmable and our people to be able to go stand up paddleboarding on the harbour, should we be, and it's whether you're asking for direction on this, I don't know that you are, that they should be much more precautionary, I think, approach. Other words we use somewhere else.
Yeah, I think the theme is sort of a bit more of a passive submission rather than stressing the or taking the more regulatory approach.
If I look at all the 4 things that are there, we've said we'll amend the list of matters that DCC will take into account.
Yeah.
We've said we'd amend the provisions of the bylaw to incentivise the use of technologies. Now, that's not to ban others, but it's to do the incentivising.
Yeah.
I actually find this quite a proactive set. I do not see it as a final set. I do think it's a question, just as you or Kevin said before, is this banning people washing their cars and the explosion that happens?
Yeah, no, I'm just wondering whether we should be taking. I'm just putting it out there for us to discuss.
I think it's a gradual, and this is the first of them.
I don't know that we should be taking it gradual.
No, I think it needs to be much quicker too, but I think we're going the right way with this.
Step in the right direction.
It's another 12 years before they do it again, probably.
No, it isn't, because of fresh water, because of the MPS that's coming through on Three Waters. It's been taken out of their hands.
Okay, no, sorry, I've just asked a question. That's what we have that debate round table. Do you understand?
Okay, is there a will that we adopt what's in front of us in its current form to be the basis of the submission to both bylaws, or do we want to take a slightly stronger stance, as been suggested by Kate and Alexa?
Very much where we're going, I would like to see it take a slightly stronger stance. But it's pretty good.
So the discharge permits that the DCC has, if they have a bylaw that allows people to discharge into the DCC stormwater and they get monitored and found to have contamination, then it's the DCC that gets done. Is that correct? And so it is at their risk if they do
breach the
breach
standard, or
And they have good green dotted on the map things.
I'm not sure that we do on stormwater. Do we monitor stormwater drains into the harbours?
There are consents for those.
Yeah.
We do.
Yep.
Yeah. We do.
DCC does.
DCC does. We monitor
We monitor their
they
monitoring.
do the monitoring,
Okay.
but they supply those results. To us.
Okay, well that's fine because that process, if it's rigorous and it's better than some
They're
councils.
responsible as the holder for the monitoring and reporting that to us.
these relate to consents that the DCC have to discharge into the harbour, to discharge stormwater into the harbour, and they provide data, monitoring data to us so many times a year or whatever.
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Paragraph 15.
I did.
Okay. Michael.
I've just got to ask a question. Is this a serious environmental degradation issue? I need that from our people. So are we observing deleterious environmental effects from stormwater being discharged into our riverways and into our coastal areas?
Either Dunedin City Council.
Is that a question for Tom or?
Because that's the question. I mean, what does the evidence show us before we worry about what we're going to say?
I can probably only, yeah. Do you have a view?
Well, I mean, I guess in terms of the evidence that comes through that compliance monitoring program, so I'm not aware of any issues, particularly with deep.
But surely,
Sorry. Should I?
If there was serious breaches that were being picked up through the regulatory, I would have assumed there would have been a conversation with the policy team to say, look, we've dropped the ball here. We need to be far greater. We must have send a stronger message to the council. So I assume we haven't got those sort of signals coming from the regulatory arm.
Yeah, it depends. It depends if you have issues that are the result of DCC not really meeting their consent conditions, then it would be a conversation that the compliance team has with DCC rather than with the policy team.
But if you okay.
Sorry, Michael's asking a different question.
Exactly.
Sorry. He's asking the question: is stormwater creating environmental issues?
Is there a mischief?
That's exactly what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Where's the evidence that
it's a higher level, and I don't know.
And what Richard is saying to us is, we've got consents. The TA monitors them as to whether or not they're meeting those consents. It doesn't answer the primary question, which is the far more important one from our point of view. Are there negative environmental consequences that we can quantify from current stormwater discharge?
So I would say take a look at things like the Kaikorai stream. That gives you your answer. So there are stormwater related issues in terms of the Kaikorai stream. DCC has been working really proactively with us in conversations about some of those issues, for example, the cleaning of mud tanks and all of that kind of thing. But the other thing I would say is that I think the fact that there's Three Waters reform underway is a signal to all of us that stormwater is a problem. So absolutely, in my view, and I'm not being specific to any of our TAs particularly, but I do think, when no one is as good as we should be on stormwater, would be my view.
Thank you. Hilary.
We seem to be getting involved in the how TAs carry out their business as regards things that come out of their area. Is that something we need to do when, if there's a weather question, which Sarah's suggested there is in some places, then the how is not relevant to the weather necessarily. So we can just leave it alone and it would make no difference, because if it comes out the other end and it's being monitored and it doesn't do what it ought to be doing, we've got a question, and it'll be the same question whether or not we involve ourselves in this other stuff, won't it?
Yes, I think the answer to the question, Andrew, is no. We aren't environmentally monitoring stormwater.
So we are...
Therefore, what that does is, interestingly, this discussion makes it difficult for us to be able to provide an informed, if we don't know what the effects are.
So I think, I might take this on notice, but as I understand it, we don't monitor stormwater discharge as a monitoring program in of its own right. We monitor water quality and quantity, or stormwater is one possible way that the water quality may be affected or water quantity may be affected within the stream. It's not the only way.
But we do monitor wastewater treatment plants.
From a compliance perspective, yes.
But also, and we do that so that we want to make sure that they aren't distributing environmental degradation from those particular facilities. The theory is the same.
We monitor coastal, but
So
not
I'm
fresh
going
water.
to Gretchen, go to Kevin and then Gretchen, and then we'll wrap this up. And Marion, okay?
Very briefly.
Okay, then we'll wrap this up because I think we're getting off task a little bit. But Kevin?
Look, sorry, it's just a comment, is that probably 40 years ago, Auckland never had a stormwater issue because they didn't have the population. And I think we'll be seeing, as our population grows, stormwater will become more and more of an issue for our waterways. It's as simple as that. When we took our tour around the Taieri, very interesting to see that Mosgiel, because of their increased asphalt, increased development out there, they're now looking at upgrading the stormwater. So, and I'm heartened that Three Waters is coming along, because this is perhaps the time when Mosgiel should be looking at saying, well, let's treat our stormwater so we don't pollute the waterways, and let's get it tidy. So I think the Three Waters, hopefully that will answer a lot of those issues. Population will drive the degree of stormwater pollution. It's as simple as that. It will be happening to us now, but it may not be affecting our environment greatly. But as our population grows, it will happen.
It's just the dilution argument.
Yeah, no, it's 100%. No, I've said it's happening now.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's not happening. I'm saying it is happening now.
Okay.
And it is only when it gets greater that people worry about it. It should be worried about now.
Okay, Gretchen?
Sorry.
Don't be sorry.
Obviously an issue that we're pretty interested in, that's the first thing, but we're getting into a much broader conversation than what this is about. And I tend to agree actually that this is a how, and it's probably just fine how it is at the moment, although I'm very passionate about stormwater myself and I'd like to take it further. I do think that we have other avenues to do that. On the water monitoring side of things, we do monitor the consents into the Dunedin Harbour from the DCC stormwater network, but we don't monitor specifically anywhere else in Dunedin through consents. So the freshwater stuff doesn't get monitored. But we have state of the environment reporting. In the past, we have monitored stormwater specifically, so we've got historic data on some stormwater stuff. I'm pretty sure DCC have as well. Anyway, it's an issue that I think we need to revisit and look at, and I actually think we need to be hand in hand with our TA partners so that we're informed of where they're at. They're obviously trying to elevate this issue as well, and how can we walk together and help each other, RPS, etc. coming up. It's very timely. Let's do it together, but not today. Okay.
Do you want to respond?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. On that point, that was one of the comments that we got from the compliance team, actually, to kind of work together with the DCC to sort out these issues. We didn't include it in the paper because it's actually not related to the paper. It's something that flows on from it. What we did basically was look at the bylaws and look at, well, does the DCC provide enough guidance and regulation to inform its users or the users of the networks as to what they can discharge or shouldn't discharge in that network, in that system? And our finding was, yes, it does, because it gives examples of you shouldn't put litter in a stormwater system. And it does it in a kind of a easy to understand language. So that's where we were coming from with writing this paper.
Yeah. Thank you. Marion.
Thank you. I'll just repeat a little bit of what Kevin said over there, which was you only have to look at every summer and Auckland beaches, and then you understand about stormwater. They have to close their beaches.
I said it.
Okay. Into the discussion. I'm happy to move recommendation 1 and 2. 1, that we receive the
I'll second that.
report, and 2, that we note the draft submission points recommended by staff.
Aye.
Aye.
Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good discussion.
Thank you.
The last item, which is the...
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
So moved.
Thank you. Moved by Michael. I will second. The minutes everyone heard that? Strategy and planning, and what was the other one? Regulatory. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Now, as far as I know, that concludes the meeting.
Wow.
That was a good one.
Can
Madam
I
Secretary.
just say one thing?
Okay, Sarah, and then we'll go to Marion. We're still live.
Okay.
No, I don't want to talk, darling.
Mine is fine.
Okay.
If we finish the meeting then.
The meeting has concluded, but Sarah has something to share with us. Or is it relates to the
Can we
meeting?
be sure it's finished?
It does.
Okay, we haven't closed the meeting yet.
Well, it's just housekeeping really, but when we met the other day, so Gretchen, Michael and Andrew and myself, we talked about us providing you with some key messages that you can use when or if you speak to the media. It doesn't mean that you can't say what your opinion is, but it's just 3 or 4 sentences on each item that are factual, so that you can talk about that as an introduction to whatever you might want to say in terms of your opinion. I have the first draft for this meeting, so I will send them to you now. It's a work in progress, so, you know, this is just our first crack at it, but I think the agreement was that we'd try and use them so that we can be consistent. And what it's about is not taking away your right to have an opinion at all, but it's just about often we don't actually inform people about what the conversation was before we start talking about what our opinion is. So that's what it's intended for. So I'll send them to you now.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Lovely. That now concludes the meeting. Thank you all for your attendance, your contribution. Have a safe journey home.